The first light of dawn brushed against the airport's tall windows, casting long shadows across the security checkpoint. Among the passengers was a young woman with jet black hair tied in a neat ponytail. Her eyes were calm, her posture still, yet there was something about her that unsettled those who looked too closely. Her name was Elena Cruz, 28 years old, and she was anything but ordinary. But no one asked who she was that morning. "Ma'am, please open your bag." Elena gave a silent nod, placing her backpack on the conveyor belt. One of the security officers, a young, cocky man with more swagger than sense, shot her a glance, then exchanged a smirk with his female colleague. "Great, another one who thinks she's Jason Bourne." Elena said nothing. She was used to it. Prejudices had followed her all her life. Every time she achieved something, someone would whisper, she probably had connections. Even when she ranked in the top 5 at the military academy, male cadets had muttered behind her back, instructor probably had a crush on her. But the truth ran far deeper than whispers. The officer snapped her bag open with a flourish, snapping his gloves for dramatic effect, like he was preparing to search a criminal. He started digging, smugly. "Let's see what we have here. Wallet? Phone? Oh, what's this?" He pulled out a black box. "Looks like someone brought their jewelry." He turned to his colleague, chuckling. "Bet her boyfriend gave it to her." He opened the box with a theatrical twist. Inside lay a badge, sleek, gold-trimmed, and dignified. It bore a single inscription, U.S. Special Forces. There was a pause. The second officer chuckled, then stopped. The first froze, still holding the box, not quite understanding the weight of what he was touching. Elena's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "Hold it carefully. 5 tours in Afghanistan, 3 in Somalia. I buried friends to earn that." The air turned cold. Passengers turned to watch. The officer's face went pale. His hands trembled. He hastily placed the box back. I was just checking. I didn't mean." Elena locked eyes with him, calm but burning. "Then one day maybe you'll learn not how to carry a badge, but how not to shrink in front of someone who does." The security supervisor had been watching from afar. He approached. His eyes landed on the badge, and he stopped, swallowed hard. It was like he stood at attention. "Ma'am, I sincerely apologize. Would you like an escort through the terminal?" Elena said nothing. She picked up her bag and walked away. No words, no anger, just presence. But the silence she left behind spoke louder than any shouting match ever could. That day, every officer at that checkpoint realized they weren't just checking bags. They were looking at people. And with people, you don't just scan ID, you recognize value. But this was only the beginning. Elena Cruz had a past deep enough to carry that silence. And once, on a winter night, everything changed. That night, as the cold wind howled outside, Elena Cruz sat by the airplane window, the badge in her backpack feeling heavier than ever. Her reflection on the glass told more than just fatigue. It carried echoes of the past. It had started 2 years ago, a frigid winter night. The team was roused by a red alert. Intelligence suggested enemy combatants had infiltrated a remote village in northern Afghanistan, wearing civilian clothes. There was a suspicious one, possibly a bomb. "We're going in," said the team commander, "fast and clean." Elena had objected. "There are children inside, women too. If we storm in, there'll be tragedy." They didn't listen. "She's just emotional," someone muttered. Typical. But that night, Elena didn't follow orders. She followed her conscience. She drugged her partner with a sedative, snuck around the back of the building alone. Inside, she saw a young girl, couldn't have been more than 10, sitting beside the suspicious bag, fear in her eyes, hands hovering near the fuse. Elena knelt, spoke calmly. I'm not here to hurt you, but please, step away from the bag. The girl trembled, then cried. Slowly, she withdrew her hands. And in that moment, Elena moved, disarmed the bomb with a steady grip. Minutes later, her partner rushed in. The girl was safe. The bomb was defused. But Elena, she was court-martialed. Broke protocol, they said. But the higher-ups saw something else. Courage. The badge she now carried wasn't just for disabling a bomb. It was for choosing hard over orders. That airport officer? Just a drop in the ocean of what Elena Cruz had endured. And this was far from over. The security officer was still rummaging through her bag, latex gloves brushing over documents, opening notebooks, unzipping pouches. Elena stood still, but in her eyes a distant blankness returned. She wasn't in the terminal anymore. She was back in that desert bunker. Then it happened. The officer paused, his hand wrapped around a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a golden badge, engraved with 2 letters, SF, Special Forces. He flinched. His finger hovered above the emblem, then retracted. His eyes widened as he turned to his colleague. Take a look, now. The second officer leaned in. Wait, is this real? Elena said nothing. She didn't need to. That badge spoke louder than words ever could. Instantly, the air changed. Just moments ago, she had been humiliated. Now, the whispers around her died. The crowd fell quiet as if something sacred had just entered the room. The officer quickly closed the box, placed it gently back into the bag. I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. There's been a mix-up. Elena didn't flinch. She took her bag and continued walking, chin high, shoulders squared. But behind her, the faces of the officers remained pale, stunned. From the other end of the terminal, an old man adjusted his glasses. Slowly he approached. Afghanistan, 2021, he said softly. You weren't alone in that bunker. Elena froze. Her eyes welled with tears. The man unbuttoned his coat. On his chest, the same badge. Your story is our story. The world may forget, but we never will. And as Elena walked toward her gate, she wasn't walking alone anymore. Her steps echoed the quiet triumph of a woman they had underestimated, until they saw the truth pinned to her past. The short walk from the terminal exit felt longer than it should have. By the time Elena stepped outside, the sun was nearly gone. But the crowd was still there. Dozens of eyes behind the glass, watching. Not a word spoken, no phones raised. Just an eerie, heavy stillness. Elena walked toward a parked black SUV. The passenger door opened. A woman stepped out, dressed in uniform. The stars on her shoulders, the insignia on her collar, unmistakable. General Maria Hudson, her old commander, and the only woman who had once stood beside her in the middle of a battlefield drenched in fire and doubt. I'm sorry, said Hudson, her voice steady, her eyes firm, for everything that happened today. What they did to you, they did to the country. Elena didn't reply. Her eyes dropped to the pavement. Her voice was low, almost absent. I haven't forgotten, General. They have. Hudson nodded. I know. They climbed into the SUV. The rear display flickered on. Social media feeds, News clippings, CCTV footage. The scene had gone viral. Elena's badge. The stunned officers. The silence that followed. This isn't just your story anymore, Hudson said. You've become a symbol for those who serve quietly, who are overlooked, who are silenced. Elena closed her eyes, as if trying to silence the fatigue of years buried deep in her bones. The general continued, "They want me to hold a press conference to say it was all a misunderstanding. But I'm doing something else. Tomorrow morning, I'm speaking in front of the Senate. I'll tell them exactly who you are." Iena opened her eyes. That was enough. Words weren't needed. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an old friend. Just one word. "I saw." And that was everything. The next morning, Washington, D.C. awoke under a gray sky. Rain hadn't started yet, but the world felt like it was holding its breath. Outside the Senate building, reporters swarmed, cameras clicked, news vans lined the curb. Everyone was watching. Inside, the tension was thick and still. General Hudson walked toward the podium. Each step echoed like a drumbeat. In her hands, a single file, a few documents in one photograph. Elena's military ID. "Today, I speak not just to defend the honor of one woman," she began, "but to protect the memory of this country." The room fell into reverent silence. For years, we've remained quiet about our silent heroes. They were not adorned with medals, but burdened with weight. Elena Cruz was one of them. The screen behind her lit up, a childhood photo of Elena, then her in uniform, mid-operation, then the footage from the terminal. You didn't know her because she chose not to be known. But after yesterday, invisibility is no longer an option. Heads lowered, eyes shifted. Some senators looked ashamed. Hudson's final words were simple. Elena Cruz isn't just a soldier. She is this nation's conscience, and no one has the right to humiliate her. Outside in a quiet hallway, Elena stood watching the broadcast. One tear rolled down her cheek. But it wasn't sadness. It was relief. It was justice. Her phone buzzed again. Thousands of notifications. Her old unit, commanders, strangers, women, young girls. They all said the same thing. "Thank you." Elena closed her eyes, breathed in. She was no longer alone. And that day, the story behind a single badge reached millions.